All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us tonight for our first virtual tasting, and thank you everyone for coming along. We are, it's been a little while. We started these in COVID, and they were a lot of fun. And we thought we'd bring it back a little bit with some new whiskey samples and a release that we're releasing. Oh yeah, tonight. Yeah, okay. I don't know if I made it live. Okay, we'll check that later. So far left we have Mark Teague, Mr. Whiskey is My Jam. We have Ben James, our distiller, Trevor Smith, our brewer, myself. Mr. David King is joining remotely because he is sick. Would have been nice to have our punching bag here tonight, but we can just roast him remotely without problem. We also have Rocky tuning in from Melbourne. I'm sure everyone can sort of see him there sitting in his throne, his big white throne with all his friends. So thanks for joining us, Rocky. All right. Look, intros are done. It's going to be pretty informal. It's going to be pretty casual. We encourage people to ask questions, probably over chat. We've got some people watching our chat. You can unmute yourself as long as you are not obnoxious and ask us questions. If you are obnoxious, you'll be muted quick smart. There's a lot of familiar faces on here tonight, but there's also a lot of new people. So we're going to start with a quick tour of the distillery, which is why I sent out the signature as well. A lot of people sort of messaged me and said, "Oh, I've got an extra sample. What was it?" Well, it's like, if you read the fucking message I sent, you would realize it was to keep you going while we did the tour. So that's what we're going to do. How do we do this? All right. How we doing, Mark?
We're rolling.
Do you reckon people can hear it?
I hope so.
All right. Can we hear them? Well, there's no one really communicating with us, is there?
No, it's one way.
All right. Okay. So, as I said, a lot of familiar faces probably know our story, but I'll go into it very briefly. We don't want to hold up the sampling too much tonight. So, we are Hobart Whisky. We're a small family-owned distillery based in Hobart, established in 2014. We're actually distillery number 9 in Tasmania. You two can walk into frame if you like. Be frame, it's all right. We're all friends here. Basically, we flew under the radar for quite a while. A bit of a passion project for owner Rocky, who's with us tonight on Zoom. And just sort of decided to want to start a distillery, and that's what we've done. So very small team, myself, Ben, Trevor. We've got Josh upstairs as well. And look, we just pretty much focused on just making whiskey that we enjoy. Whiskey is such a subjective thing that there's no one suits everybody whiskey. So the best we can do is make whiskey that we really, really enjoy, and then share it with people. So look, quick tour. This is our brewing setup. I'm sure people here have seen some really beautiful, shiny brewing setups, and this is ours. It is not beautiful or shiny, but it gets the job done. You want to talk them through how whiskey is made very briefly? You've got about 35 seconds.
Yeah, very briefly. So this is our mash tun. Each run I mash around 330 kilos of grain. Mash it for an hour. And after that, I run it through the chiller into the fermenter, which is out in the bond store, and ferment it out for a week, and then it goes into the still for the first stripping run.
Oh, we don't have that markets. There's shit everywhere.
Do you want to see the side? So just the mesh in the bottom, stop the grain going through. Pretty basic stuff.
Yeah, look, so we try to do as much as we can here. We're doing our own brewing. Early days of buying and washing Moo Brew. We're very particularly excited. We want to do our own brewing. Just impart some character into the spirit of whiskey. And look, it's just, if we've got the capacity to do it, then why not do it? We're even looking at putting down a proper barley at Rocky's Farm in Coal River Valley, doing some paddock bottles, but I've been talking about that for like 3 years. So maybe one day. I will talk about the dram in your hand. This is our Hobart Whisky Signature, which is a 4-range whiskey that we released in 2020. I believe 2020. Effectively, we just wanted to be able to make a whiskey that was consistent and sweet and sessionable, and that's what we've done. So we'll talk a bit more about maturation when we walk into the bond store. But we are here into our still room. So we have a single 1800 litre copper pot still, locally made. You want to tell us a bit, Ben?
Yeah, so after the mashing's done, so 2 mashes are done, we end up with a fermented full 2,400 litres, which makes 2 runs in here. We run that twice through, which then makes 1 spirit runs. Obviously, that all goes back through once it's blended, which takes a long time after that. because we've only got one skill, so it takes a lot of things. We put that back through, and that's when we did the cuts. We end up with about 250 litres of new make, and that's about what we get every week. So that's the basis.
Yeah, look at whiskey production is pretty straightforward, right? Like we get a barley, we do things to it, we ferment
It's
it.
malted.
Yeah, you know, it's just-
There's a lot of fine details in it that kind of gets a bit boring talking about. So, yeah.
all right. On store. Any questions, Mark?
Yeah.
Not yet. Nothing from you. So out to the bond store. So we've got some casks lit around the building and other sites now. But the bulk of our spirit is here. So early days when we started the distillery, we went down. There was a lot of other, well, not a lot of other Tasmanian distillers, but there were other Tasmanian distillers doing heavy fortified cask maturation. We decided to be a little bit different, and so Rocky at the time brought in a whole, quite a lot of American oak bourbon wood. It works really well because I love bourbon matured whiskey. And we find it a really good maturation cask type that we can then finish in other casks, much like our Botrytis that we're trying tonight. So, mature in bourbon for X amount of time and then finish in another cask, whether it's fortified or wine or rum or something like that. Early days, a lot of distillers, craft distillers go down the small cask route, 20 litres. We decided not to do that as well. Whiskey's a patient game. We flew under the radar for a while and we had a bit of time up our sleeves. So we started with 40 and 50 litre casks and some 80 litre casks. Nowadays, we're pretty much filling hundreds or larger. Once the rack's full of these hundreds, we'll probably pretty much be all full format. So, again, we have a bit of a luxury here that, it's family business and, Rocky's got quite a few other business ventures, and it means that we can take our time because we really can just take our time with whiskey. I actually found a message the other day from somebody else. Like, I was talking to him about August last year, and I was like, "Yeah, Botrytis will be out before the end of 2022." Like, it's what, May, and it just sort of shows that even once the whiskey's mature, it can take so much time to air and stainless, or the Botrytis especially sort of had a few different things go on. So, yeah, okay, yeah, oh yeah, okay. Good point, Mark. So this Pinot cask here is actually the exact cask that you'll be trying tonight. French oak, full maturation Pinot Noir cask. We could pull a sample. It's probably no point since we've got some upstairs. Over here we have a 550 litre Muscat butt. That's the other one that is on the tasting tonight. You want me to?
Yeah, pull on a Muscat.
The Muscat. I didn't actually leave this glass here for this purpose, so that just worked really well. Whiskey thief in.
It's actually the other Muscat that we use.
Doesn't matter. All right, so there we go. Nice fresh sample of the Muscat finish. You can have that, Mark.
Thanks, Tom.
There we go. So look, it's just we wanted to start this virtual tonight with a bit of a tour of the distillery. Gives people a bit of insight to what we're doing. And as I did touch on, the dram that you started with, the signature, predominantly ex-bourbon maturation. So yeah, core range whiskey. The idea is it's light, sweet, sessionable. We've been working on this for quite a while now. Batch 14.
So we've got a lot of different kind of bourbon casks. We've got Dark Horse, Hill Rock, JD, Jack Daniels, Maker's Mark, Basil Hayden's. But there's heaps more, and it's really cool to work with. And what we try to do with the signature is just bring out the best of bourbon we can, and just make it approachable. It's a nice, light, approachable whiskey. We sometimes call it a breakfast dram.
Breakfast whiskey, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. So look, pop into the chat as well what you think of this. I'm sure there's a lot of people that have had it, but tell us what you think. Be honest, relatively honest. Don't be too honest because it's been a bit of a long week. But you can tell us what you think. Come on through. So we do have a lot of American oak ex-bourbon, but around here we also have some different casks. We've got Hungarian oak, Tokay, we've got Madeiras, cognacs, all that sort of stuff. Over in the corner, I'm really excited about these casks. So we have here we've got a couple of 70-year-old port pipes, 650-litre port pipes. Had the opportunity to buy a little while ago. Look, monstrous casks, a lot of history in them. Other distillers come in, think I'm absolutely batshit crazy for not cutting them down into small casks, smaller casks. But look, I think they're a bit of a work of art in their own right. Rocky's got 2 sons. They've both been named now for the sons. It's basically their casks. We probably have no stake in that. But, you know, they're probably maybe 8, 10, 12-year casks, maybe 15.
Yeah.
Not now, I mean, by the time they're done.
Yeah.
And look, it's just, you just don't find old wood like this. But what I didn't consider at the time was about 5 weeks worth of production just to fill 2 casks. So pretty big investment sitting there. So hopefully they're not shit. Hopefully they're good, right? Yeah.
Hopefully we're here to say it.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. Good point. We'll see how tonight goes. All right. So, yeah, look, I think I want to keep the tour nice and short. I think that's probably about 10, 15 minutes. So we're going to head back upstairs and get stuck into the first dram.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, might as well move along with you.
John, someone wants to see you lift a cask.
One of the pour pipes.
Yeah, go the biggest one, John.
Yeah, okay, yeah, maybe after a few more drinks. That's after we stop recording and after we're live. Once we stop going live. All right. Well, we're going to start with these samples. We decided to start with the Muscat Cask Finish. What do you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, so that is the finish. Obviously, came from 100-litre bourbon casks, vatted together. They were about 4.5 to 5 years old, and it's now been in the Muscat cask for around about 6 months.
6 months. I thought
Yeah.
6, but I mean, it doesn't really sound like a long time, right? Especially Muscat butt, because a butt is what, 550-litre cask? 500,
Big butt,
550?
eh? Yeah. Massive butt.
Took like 45 minutes to fill.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Do you like that? Just throw you in the deep end, get you to start talking about the whiskey. You weren't expecting that, were you?
Well, Trevor filled the spot.
All right. What else can you tell us about
About the barrels.
it? That's all right.
No.
I'm just being a troll now.
Yeah.
So, all right.
So mainland.
I believe so. Yeah.
Australian mainland.
Yeah, I believe. I want to say yes. I'd have to have a look at my notes, and I probably should have before we went live on the stream, but I wasn't expecting technical questions.
You should do.
Yeah, right. So, look, Muscat Cask Finish, bourbon matured, straight away on the nose, and sort of getting a lot of that vanilla from the bourbon straight up. But I mean, it has only been in the butt for 6 months. What's everyone else saying? Does somebody put the dram order up as well? You guys all over it?
Yep.
All
It's
right,
all up.
perfect.
There was a question, what batch is the signature up to now?
We're up to batch 14, I believe. 14.
Yeah. Yep.
And we tried it tonight, and I think it's probably one of the best signatures. It's such a wanky thing to say, though, right? Like,
No, we did a side by side at the Oak Barrel last year, John, with some of the first ever batch
Yeah,
release, and,
yeah.
and I think honestly the signatures have gone from strength to strength.
Oh,
They're definitely
yeah.
improved from the earlier batches. And
yeah,
I assume the reality is they are older in the cask, more larger format.
they're older, and because we effectively sort of Solera the signature, not in wood, but we have stainless, and we sort of add to it and then bottle portion of it. So it's building character every time. You know, it's getting a lot more complex and a lot more depth in it.
Yeah. Are you finding you're able to do it 100% American oak ex bourbon, or are you occasionally having to add in something else sneaky to give it a bit of body? Or
It's pretty much 100% like
Yeah.
at least 99.9 or something.
Yeah, occasionally we might just add in like a bit of PX or something like that, just sort of give it a bit of something else. But yeah, for the most part, it's largely bourbon now.
do you ever go back to the first release span, or those early releases as sort of an indicator of what you're trying to seek, or do you think that your palate's at the point where you know what the signature should taste like and you can hit it most times?
Yeah, so I mean, there was a stage where we always were comparing back and just trying to keep that, keep everything as similar as possible. But nowadays, not so much of that happens. We've sort of got it down pack. However, I would love to actually go back and just sit down.
I have got bottles of the old ones as well.
Yeah,
I mean, I've been saying this since about batch 5, and if we went to try 5 in a row, it wouldn't be too bad. But to
Yeah,
try 14 is
14.
probably going to it's going to be a little bit daunting. I've just sipped that Muscat finish, and I guess I should explain, what we do with these tastings. There's only one sample here that everybody has, apart from the signature, that's actually in bottle and ready to go. Because straight away on that Muscat, I get a little bit of youth. Like, it's a little bit young to me.
It's certainly not ready. And this is just an insight to see what's happening. Something different. We don't normally do Muscat casks, and we'll just.
No, there's only a handful of Tassie distilleries that have released muskets. Overeem have definitely done some. Old Kempton have done some.
Launceston
have done a musket finish last year as a special release. TIB, some of the Redland cask releases they did were musket. So it's becoming more frequent, but certainly not something that's the norm in the Tasmanian single malt whiskey scene.
I mean, we actually thought about cutting that. So we had I can't remember what we were going to put in here instead. No, we put the Chardonnay in, didn't we, instead of...
Yeah, that was the Madeira.
The Madeira cask, that's right. Yeah. So, look, we did sort of try to build a theme with the tasting tonight around the Botrytis Cask Finish. And sort of, I see a bit of a theme. They're all single malts. So,
we've got the wine theme, I suppose.
The wine, a bit of wine.
So when you say it's a little still young, you think just more time in the Muscat cask finish in it should...
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, just
definitely.
It needs a lot more. Like, it's not really working for me. I mean, it's good, but it's not sort of thing. And I guess that's sort of why I wanted to highlight what we've done with this tasting. This is not stuff we're going to put in bottle and ship out the door.
Yeah.
There's maybe two on this, apart from the Botrytis, that are sort of earmarked to come out this year, but that means maybe sometime next year. So
but anyway, we could be wrong. You could tell us we're wrong.
Well, we are going to do a poll at the end, and look, we are sort of keen to hear what people have to say. I do love that Dabaz joined the stream, even though it's his wife's birthday tonight. So I'm very impressed with that. Thank you, mate.
Yep. To that end, Dabaz did correct me. They've done 2 musket releases.
Right. Okay. So do we need to kick him?
No.
Okay.
It's a fair point. I should have realised. I should have remembered. Yep. I think that's good though. I think it's got bones. There's no obvious flaws. It's got a good long finish on the palate. Like, it's got everything structurally you'd want. That will hopefully build over that extra time in the cask.
I'm pretty happy with where it's headed. By no means is it anywhere near ready to bottle, but from where it started, it's grown legs. It's grown a bit of character. Just needs to keep going.
Did anyone try it with water?
No, actually, I was meant to, and then I nearly finished my samples. So, a few drops of water, because it is quite spirity at 59%. I love it. You got pipettes, and I'm just sort of going finger. What about over there in the lurkers? Any thoughts?
In the peanut gallery, any comments?
Yeah.
Drinking well, depth of character, a few drops of water.
Definitely take some of that spirit off the nose with a few drops.
Yeah. Keeps actually draws through some of the stone fruits, I think, with the water that I wasn't getting.
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
It goes really well with that brown ale as well.
Yeah. Ben's brown ale.
Yeah. No, it's not bad. All right. So any questions, any thoughts? Remember, you can unmute yourself and ask questions. Just don't be obnoxious, or we're going to kick you. Actually, Rachel will kick you. So yeah.
Hey Ben, what is a musket cask? What is musket?
So musket's a fortified wine. And it's a fortified wine, very similar to PX, made from muscatel grapes. What else can we say about muscat?
I think it's in Australia, it's actually a specific variety that they use to call it muscat, and they normally colloquially call it a brown muscat, and that's because I can't remember the name of the grape variety they use in it. But it's often...
Well, I'm disappointed because we invited you to impart some knowledge tonight, and you've let us down. So
sometimes they liken it to Sauternes as well, but I think muscatel is the one that's most frequent.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Just on the same similar question with the Botrytis, is that a Riesling Botrytis barrel, or is it Botrytis? Where's the Botrytis come from?
It's actually Sauvignon Blanc Botrytis.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, I thought
Botrytis.
we were still on number one.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah,
you know,
sorry.
this is a good segue to go to number two. Like,
No.
Mark's ready, So,
No, I just
All right,
asked that
let's
because
get
because
straight
somebody
into
was
it.
asking it. Because somebody was
All right.
asking about the cask. That was the only reason I asked that.
He's a very eager beaver.
yeah, no, that's all right. No, look, we do encourage questions.
Yeah. Quick tasting.
Bit of banter. It's meant-
tasting.
It's meant to be pretty casual, loose tasting. I mean, we've had some pretty loose virtual tasting events. All right, so we will move on to the Tasmanian Botrytis Cask Finish.
What number release of your limited release range for 2023 is
This,
John?
a great question, Mark. I love it. Not ready for it. I've got to think about that. It's our first, right?
First for 2023.
I did touch on downstairs, you know, that we had planned on putting this out last year, but it just didn't happen. Much to my disappointment, because I thought it was really good for a long time, but you know, now it's even better,
I
right?
love rubbing in that's our first.
Yeah. we're about to hit June, right? And we're just about to do our first release for 2023.
So we did a small tasting event and we featured an early version of this up in
That's
Launceston
right. In November?
at the
Barrel,
Barrel Collective in Launceston in my hometown. And I thought at that time it was really good and was ready then. And I thought it would polled quite well on the night as well.
Yeah, I thought it was great, but it can always be greater, right? Like, you know,
I'm not sure that's a word. But yeah.
look, it's a word if I say it's a word. So there's no poll to, you know, to determine whether greater is a word or not. So we're just going to say it is. All right. Tasmanian Botrytis Cask, cut back to 52.2. Is that the right ABV? I think that's wrong, actually. I think it might be 51.4.
That's what this is.
Oh, so this was just before we bottled it as well. So everyone's got slightly different sampled ones.
Earlier sample.
Right. Okay.
So they can save a smidge of this sample and buy a bottle and see if they would have preferred it at the higher ABV.
They could, but it was only 15 mil sample. So I'd like to see somebody save a smidge of 15
Well, if they
mil.
put more than one sample pack, they're fine.
True. Yes. Okay. All right. So this is our, as we touched on, our first release of this year. It's had a bit of a journey. Started as American Oak ex-bourbon maturation for 3.5 years. And then it was transferred to a Botrytis cask for 2 years. And then what did you do, Ben?
Yeah, so bourbon, Botrytis, and came out very pretty full on. A little bit too full on for our liking, like a little bit winey. And it was just sort of like halfway in the journey as far as we were concerned. Well, maybe further than halfway.
It was just so winey. It was just so
Yeah.
drinking with Botrytis that it was sickly wine, like drinking Botrytis.
Yeah, and Botrytis is a funky wine. I don't know if most people know where Botrytis comes from, but it's like a form of mold that grows on the grapes, and it's got a bit of a funky character to it.
Is it a mold? I've been telling people it's a disease.
Both the same.
No, it's
Okay.
all right.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
I know it's noble rot, right?
yeah,
That's
exactly.
rot.
yeah.
noble rot. Yeah.
That's it.
So, but it was, Ben did decide that it needed to go back into a bourbon cask for 6 months. So
Yeah, and it was a fresh, brand new Maker's Mark bourbon cask, and I mean fresh to the point where I actually emptied 4.5 liters of bourbon out of it before I put it in there.
and where's that?
Oh.
You didn't tell me about that. Right. Okay.
Gotta have
We'll
some
talk about it
secret.
later.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So look, it has had a bit of a journey. Bourbon, Botrytis bourbon, just under 6 years old, I think. So one of our oldest whiskies. We're not going to put an age statement on it because, 6 years is not really anything to sort of put an age statement on anyway.
Yeah,
But we are pretty excited about it. We sort of feel like we struck a balance between, the American Oak ex-bourbon and the wine.
and the Botrytis, yeah. So there were some cool characters to the Botrytis, but it was just sort of like tame in it because there's a lot of sort of funky things that we didn't really want. So the bourbon did everything there. Bourbon fixes everything.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, bourbon's amazing.
Mm.
We should just
It
distill
gives
bourbon,
me
right?
to round it out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
rounded
from the
nicely.
from the Botrytis, it was slightly bit tart.
Mm.
Bourbon just
Yep.
added to it and rounded it
I've
out.
had this weird thing where I've been describing flavors as colors and shapes lately. So the way I see it, it was sort of like a spiky green thing, and now it's just like a nice round.
Mark, you finished. That's what I used to do when I was young and dead.
Maybe, yeah.
Because you got to reach it to go to parties.
All right, who do we need to be?
A really good one. I did. I think his uncle still got it. Still uses it. I've got your.
All right. So look, give it a go. See what you think. We think the sweet spot was around 52%.
So the sample that they currently have is a pre-release sample, not the one in bottle. And this cask had a particularly fine char inside, so some of the samples may have.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So basically the samples come out of the stainless vessel. They've been in stainless for weeks, months, like so long. And you bottled it a couple of weeks ago, right? And you had to like put a few layers of filter bag in just to get rid of that fine char. That's what Mark's referring to. I told him about how it just had that fine black char.
We don't filter to the point of actually filtering the whiskey. It's just removing the actual charcoal, which literally was a bit of a process because this one, we hadn't flocked it and we don't normally flock whiskey. This one just had a lot more char than usual. So heavy char bourbon cask it came from.
And for me, immediately, this is a more refined whiskey. This feels more balanced. It has those rough edges taken off that we're experiencing in the Muscat cask. I think it shows that it's something that was ready to be bottled imminently and has subsequently been bottled as a result.
Yeah, no,
don't be afraid to add water though. As always, Hobart does like to have its whiskies at a fairly high ABV as an industry standard. So
okay, I wouldn't say 52 is fairly high, but yeah. Look, that's right. The thing is though, right, like you can always add a drop of water, to any whiskey at any point. But if we'd cut this back to 40%, 43%, then it's stuck there.
Well, we did end up dropping a bit in there because we went to 51.4. So.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, just right at the end there.
Yeah.
No, look, I'm keen to see what anyone thinks. How many people here have had a Botrytis cask whiskey or a Botrytis finished whiskey? Are they common, Mark? I mean, this is probably a whiskey nerd thing that you would know.
Did a Botrytis. Yeah. I've done a couple of Botrytis releases. Obviously, that's Robbie doing his independent bottlings of stuff that he had distilled while he was Old Kempton and Redlands. Under his Dermot Distillery co-labelling. They're the ones that jump out at me just because they're both ones that I and my wife quite enjoyed. So, but again, it's a bit like the Muscat. It's stepping up in frequency and you'll see more and more come through just because people want to vary from the norm, the Tassie Tawny ports or the red wine finishes, which are often difficult to thread the eye of that needle. So, I can see more and more Botrytis coming online. The Noble Rot, I certainly don't get anything that's a funk or a mold on this. I recently had a Armagnac that I believe it was that had been used with a Noble Rot grape, and it's been described to me as the peated Armagnac version of their industry, and it was very affected by the Noble Rot. So I'm glad to see this has just add sweetness. And
this is very sweet.
It's been an interesting whiskey because sometimes you'll go to taste it and you'll get the sour elements. Little bit like, green mangoes, like sour mangoes. And then other times it's just like more bourbon elements like the caramels and the vanillas.
Oh, school, we should be talking about tasting notes. What are other people's tasting notes? I mean, there's no wrong answers except green mango.
I've been corrected that quite a few of our mainland counterparts have been releasing Botrytis casks. So that's good to see. Amber Lane, Oling Distillery. So it's definitely becoming more frequent. As far as tasting notes, some people like it with or without water. Some people still getting a dryness on the finish.
Is that a wine cask thing, do you think? Or I mean, I don't get any of that funk, the Botrytis funk, but it's definitely got this earthy character.
I get it on the nose, but I think maybe it's because I've been smelling it so much for the last couple of weeks with Ben.
I thought you were going to say maybe it's your hand, like
Strawberries and cream is what tasting that we just got, which is excellent.
What about again in the shadows there? Any
in the shadows? In the hangers-ons? Tasting.
That's not really a tasting note. I said there was no wrong answers, but that's wrong.
Macadamia oil, apricots, nectarines.
Okay, all right. You're just making things up now, right?
Apricots and nectarines. I definitely get the strawberries and cream on the nose, like you popped open a bag of strawberry cream confectionery lollies and
strawberry treacle, that sort of thing. That's what I got.
No, look, I'm really happy with how that one come out. I mean, you've been working on it for a while. It's we wanted that to be right, especially being something quite different like a Botrytis cask. So
Final tasting notes, red skin on the nose,
Oh, yeah.
coffee, pepper, cream, apple. And Dabaz is saying he'll take on John. I don't know what that means, but it sounds like a challenge.
All right. I'm okay with that. That's fine. I'm always open to a challenge, especially from someone scrawny like Dabaz. All right. So, look, that one is available tonight. So we are going live with that one tonight. The rest of the bottles will be made available next week. What day is it? Saturday. Yeah, probably Monday, Tuesday. But yeah, look, you do get first access by being a part of our virtual tonight.
And you haven't sent that live yet, you were saying. So
does the link work? Can someone try the link for me? Did Rach paste it in? Yeah. Can you click on it, see if it works? I mean, I've set everything else up. So
Wilfred very kindly said
perfect. Beautiful. Thank you. All right. How are we doing for time? We might move along to the Tasmanian Pinot Noir cask. So I don't know how many people here have had Hobart Whiskies before, but in 2019, we released a French oak Pinot Finish, which took out Australia's best whiskey in some whiskey awards.
I featured it at one of the first tastings I ever hosted in Launceston. Actually, the first tasting I hosted in Launceston.
Yeah, right.
2019, John kindly came along. We had
I was there.
Launceston and a Hobart.
Yeah,
In the
okay.
lobby at the Star Theatre, and
I think I vaguely remember
yeah,
that night.
Mr. Jim Davis, quite a renowned tasting man from Scotland, has done some tastings at the Vaults at the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. He loved it, and he
That's
said
right,
it had a menthol note. which he
Menthol.
quite enjoyed.
Yeah, okay.
All right. So no, I liked it as well. It was one of my early favourites.
I think it's 57.7%, probably a bit before your time, slightly. Was that it would have been your creation, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, had another fellow there, but yeah, obviously.
Yeah, you were there. You were the brainchild of it. Let's just say that.
So were you saying earlier, John, that one of these releases tonight is one of the first ever that's solely Ben's distillation?
No, I was wrong.
You were wrong. I'm glad it was.
We'll cover that later when we cover the one that we might talk about at the end. All right. So anyway, 2019. Yes, we released a Pinot Finish. We had 4 French oak Pinot Noir casks, and this is one of those casks, but this has actually been matured full term in Pinot. And we tried it a few months ago, and we're just sort of taken back because normally when you try a full maturation red wine cask, it's just going to be sickly wine. But this sort of had a lot of balance and really sort of stood out to us. It's definitely one of my favorites, but you know.
It is really tough to do a full maturation Pinot Noir cask.
Yeah.
And I think given that most of the Hobarts you have this solid ex-bourbon foundation to build upon, you do the finish. That's what you're known for.
Yeah.
So for you to release a full maturation of anything is unusual. And I know that you pain over it, John, when they do come to market. Like, am I really ready to release this? You know, it's not what Hobart's known for.
Yeah.
So it is interesting when you do release it and we get to see how the Hobart Distillery Spirit interacts full maturation with those other cask types.
Yeah, look, it's going to be an interesting one. I would really like to see if this is viable as a single cask. A single cask Pinot Noir maturation.
It's a perfect example of a single cask. You can see a bit of a single cask syndrome, so it doesn't go right across the palate, but doesn't necessarily matter. I actually think it's a really good representation of Pinot wine.
Tasmanian Pinot.
It is Tasmanian Pinot. Yeah,
we don't normally say the winery, but
no, we can't disclose the winery, but it is Tasmanian Pinot, French oak. It was recoopered down to 100-litre cask. Look, I'm interested to see what people say about it. To me, it's big and rich. A lot of that sort of red frog note coming through that you can expect from the red wine.
We're getting red fruits, fragrant, bold. Everyone's saying it's very bold. They're quite happy with it despite the red wine, which isn't always the case.
Look, I also red wine is not my sort of cask I would gravitate to normally, but I think it stands out. A few drops of water. I don't know if I've tried it with water yet.
Yeah,
just to take that edge off. It is 62.3%, so it's getting up there.
Yeah.
So this is still quite high in ABV straight from the cask compared to say the Botrytis. Is that because it's been that full maturation potentially in one cask versus being swapped between a few, or is it the age, or?
Yeah, well, that's the end product. So we've slowly cut that down, and that hasn't been cut
Botrytis,
at all.
yeah.
So,
So
yeah.
what was the Botrytis roughly at natural cask strength, do you recall?
So when it came out, it was it probably came out from its the original place would have been about 65%.
Yeah.
And then we recast it into bourbon cask at that point. No, the Botrytis cask, and then
Yes.
then the
Yeah,
bourbon
yeah.
cask years later. Yeah.
Yeah, we do see quite a bit of variance in the ABV of our casks. Some seem to go up, some seem to go down. The really good casks seem to evaporate a lot more. Can't imagine why. What do you think about this one, Dave? You've been oddly quiet. It's freaked me out a little bit. You're not a big red wine cask fan. I can't even see him in the top bar. Can you swivel it back for me, please, Mark, so I can see him? I don't even
Sorry,
know.
I was just getting cheese from the fridge.
Right.
Truffle
Yeah.
cheese, so it should be good. I'm not really a red wine cask type of guy, but as soon as I smelt this on the nose, I thought it was absolutely delicious. And with a tiny dash of water, I thought the flavors just exploded. I thought it was great. So yeah, I mean, I've never been a fan of whiskeys like Starwood and stuff with their wine casks, but this I think shows with a great cask and with a great base, it really comes together really well.
Yeah, right. Anyone else? What's everyone else got to say about it? Any comments?
Great choice by choosing French oak. That brings this spiciness, and don't confuse the hotness with strong young whiskey. It's just the spiciness from the French oak, and I think it's actually good to bottle like that, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, look, it's and it did definitely stand out to us when we were trying these casks.
Yeah.
I would like to see this one done before the end of the year, but I mean, it's going to be a bit of a process to get this, I guess, ready for bottle. Do you want to talk us through what we do between this and the bottle? Either of you? I mean, this is probably both your domain. I did say you're a distiller / brewer on the EDM account. So.
Yeah. It's a bit of a process of deciding how it is and just getting opinions to actually make sure that we're actually getting the right representation of where it sits, and then deciding what we're going to do with it. And this being a single cask like this, and it's such a perfect representation of a Pinot wine, I think we would actually go along that lines and not actually mess with it. It's not a perfect whiskey by any means, but the flavour and just the way that it represents the wine, I think we'll just go with it.
I mean, it's just romance with a single cask. I'll always gravitate towards a single cask. Doesn't have to be the most rounded whiskey, the most balanced whiskey, but
so realistically, though, if you do want this to be a single cask, how often are you going to have to be going and sampling and tasting it to make sure that it doesn't go too far?
Well, it's still in the cask at the moment. So the thing is, we'll potentially decant it in the next few months. Leave it in stainless. We might
block out.
That's it. Stir it up. We might, roll it out into the sun.
Yeah,
not there's any sun through winter. And just sort of keep an eye on it, I guess, because it can change so much even once we decant the cask and put it in stainless. And so that's where it's great that Ben and Trevor are sort of all over that. They're sort of the power behind the whiskey is sort of coming together. I just sort of get to sit back and try them at the end of the day. So, full credit to these two here.
Well, we didn't have to do anything with this. It did it by itself.
Yeah, well, that's true. So does that mean we can just put it in a bottle? We can sell this?
Look, I think there's still a few youthful elements there would be nice to knock off, but, it's getting very close. Very close.
Even I just quite often I'll nose an empty glass because I feel like it gives you just so much information about it.
So there was a question why you leave it in stainless. So briefly touch on that.
Well, it also varies on each whiskey depending what it needed to do and what cask it came from. But it's all about getting the air in there, and also letting some of the volatiles come out.
So no matter what, whenever you cut it down with water, you break it down, you're always going to have it in stainless for a period with that water in order to allow that to mesh.
Not always. It's not a set rule.
Right.
We sort of don't have set rules.
No, we sort of
Yeah.
and I explain this sometimes on tours when we're doing events. We do a lot here based on gut feeling and instinct. So quite often we'll walk through the bond store, try some casks and be like, all right, this and this might go into this new cask here, and we don't always sort of know exactly why. You just sort of got to trust your gut sometimes.
Yeah.
Much the same when you decant a cask, put it in stainless. You might you'll just do whatever you think is the best for that whiskey, right? And it
Yeah.
can vary. We've had instances where we've had whiskey in stainless working on it to bottle, and it just hasn't come together, and you've just recast it, right? So,
and often it comes down to the blending tricks. So you're looking for the elements that are missing to fix the problems that are there, and it takes a long time. You've got a lot of casts to go through to find what's missing. So.
Well, the tasting notes are all really positive on that. Everyone's getting a significant amount of spice, and potentially they're speculating from the French oak.
I would imagine the French oak for sure. Yeah.
And I think that does a lot to offset that wininess that people do associate.
I wouldn't mind a small top up of that one. Alrighty, we might move along though while we get one of the lackeys to sort that out.
Lots of interest in that though, as it is now.
Well, look, I did toy with the idea of offering some of these at this virtual only as sort of like a preview bottling, but then we just decided it was way too much work as we lead into the winter feast and everything else going on. So maybe next year, maybe.
If you guys are going to bottle this, what are you going to probably cut it down to? I think that's a really good drop. I've had other Pinots lighter than this. I think it's actually quite good. What were you thinking of cutting it down to if you do bottle it?
I'm really sorry. I don't know who that was, but that was very quiet.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me a bit better now?
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, what are you guys thinking of cutting it down to when you do bottle it? I actually think it's a really good drop. I've had other Pinots that aren't as strong or flavor so much lighter. It's actually quite good, to be honest. But what are you guys thinking of cutting it down to when you do go ahead and bottle it for release?
I would see this as a cask strength whiskey, so would actually probably try to avoid adding any water at all, and just let the natural evaporation happen, which could bring it down anywhere down to sort of 60% sort of thing.
It's sort of a tricky one because sometimes even just a drop of water can really assist a whiskey, and then as soon as we add a single drop, we can't say natural cask strength, but how many people care about natural cask strength if it just tastes good, right? Like we just want to put the best whiskey,
and you can't take it back out.
We could just add new make though, right, to bring it back up.
Perfect.
Yeah. So look, I think I always think a sweet spot for our whiskies are sort of 50 to 52 or 58 ish to 59.
Yeah. We go down that way of avoiding adding any water and getting as good as we can at that point, and then if it needs any, we'll decide it after that.
But I would really like to explore the option of a single cask, natural cask strength or close to it, 58% plus. But again, just depends how it goes, right?
All right. Sorry, guys.
No, you're right. It's all good.
Move on to the
Chardonnay. So Chardonnay is a bit of an interesting one. So this was the one you subbed this in over the Madeira, and I want you to explain why.
There wasn't much Madeira, but that's not a good reason. No, this is interesting. So Chardonnay maturation it's about 4 to 4.5 years, and it came out just interesting to me, sort of like an element that was good to work with, but on its own kind of just didn't quite work.
So this was bourbon matured though, right? And Chardonnay finish? Because I put finish on the tasting map.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But it's been in the Chardonnay casks for a good few years.
Oh wow. Yeah. Right. Okay. I should have known that.
Yeah.
I mean, I do know that. And straight 58%.
Yeah. And then like basically I've blended it with some other whiskies, things that I thought it was missing to bring those elements into place, and then thrown it in a rum cask.
Right. I didn't know this.
And yeah, you did.
Oh, well, I don't remember this. Right. Okay. All right.
Oh, you forgot.
Yeah. I didn't. I did forget. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's in rum cask now.
It's still in the rum cask, and
Right,
and
okay.
I think it works well. So
That's right. I do remember this conversation now. Sorry.
Chardonnay just works like such a good ingredient to build upon. Yep, sure, I've thrown it on its head, but I think it works well in a rum cask.
So
Me-
Chardonnay cask is quite different, I guess, right? Like, Mark, how many distillers have done
Yeah.
Chardonnay cask?
There's not a lot that have disclosed Chardonnay. They tend to use other terms rather than
Like,
saying
what
that
would
it's
they
actually
use?
Chardonnay. I've seen just sparkling white. They tend not to be too specific with their Chardonnay varietals.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Glen Murray actually from Scotland do a Chardonnay cask in their core range. That
That's
unfortunately
cool.
sold out very early in Australia's stocks.
I
Only
remember
through
that.
damage.
Do you have a
And that's
bottle?
an excellent release. No, I don't.
Yeah. Okay. No.
So it's not something you see a lot of,
Mhm.
but I really like the nose on this. This is
Yeah, I'm getting toffee apple.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is my pick for the nose for the night. Like the Botrytis is a different, completely beast, but yeah, I really enjoy this. This is excellent.
Yeah. So the Botrytis definitely has a bit of that earthy nature going on. The Chardonnay's, very sweet. Like a lot of
It's from the rum cask, so fresh rum cask.
So again, our
So-
mainland counterparts have been releasing some Chardonnay. People are pointing out with Kate Byron. I've had the Hillwood from Tassie.
Yep.
Their Chardonnay.
we don't care about Australian
Even
distillers.
did a Chardonnay.
No, it's all
pink
Tassie
one.
here.
So yeah. So yeah. That's excellent.
It's not bad.
I keep going back to that nose. Like
Yeah.
you could nose that happily for a long time. I haven't actually tried spirit, I don't think.
I didn't try it.
Mm.
You might not like it.
Oh, look, you can tell a lot about a whiskey by the nose.
Yeah.
I think Trevor's right in the money. I think drop of water.
Yeah.
Just to open it up.
That's lovely. No, I don't think that needs any water. It's good like it is. Nice round 58.
What's everyone else got to say about it? What about you, Mr. King? Are you playing Candy Crush?
Rubbish.
Oh, that's it. Just rubbish. All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Very nice, very sweet.
Very sweet.
Too sweet for you?
It is a little bit too sweet for me, but I can see what Mark's saying about the nose. It is very nice.
Let me guess. It's not an old Pulteney. So.
Or a two fat fingers.
All right. Mute him. Get rid of him. Sick of that.
His are all signature anyway.
Where's Rocky? Rocky's been oddly quiet.
I'll bring Rocky up.
Yeah, like he hasn't said a word about any of these whiskies. I'm not sure if it's a good thing or not. He's
watching the football.
I don't think he's even paying attention to us.
Yeah, we are. We're paying attention.
That's it. Like, what do you think of the whiskies? It's your distillery.
My view is Chardonnay is a truth serum.
A truth serum.
Yeah, you give Chardonnay to women and they tell you the truth.
All right, so we can probably mute them again now.
Actually,
that wasn't at all what I was expecting. So
Chardonnay one is actually very, very smooth on its own without any water to it to open it up.
who's that talking? Who said actually? Like, the word actually triggers me because it implies that you're surprised that it's actually not bad, right?
You won't actually like it. You won't win with him, Carmine. Be careful.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I think that's really good. I'd have a bottle of that now, to be honest.
So how would you compare that to the Pinot then? Because I think the Pinot's like right in the money.
No, I'd prefer the Chardonnay personally.
Definitely.
The feedback on the
Hey mate, definitely the Shardy with the rum finish is a absolute cracker.
Yep.
That's lovely.
Yeah, okay. All
As
right.
it is right now, doesn't need water. Yeah, I'd take a bottle of that.
Yeah, that drinks amazingly well for 58%.
I agree. Very smooth.
Yeah, bottle that one now, Ben.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah. So, Well, at this rate, we might have 5 more releases before the end of the year, right?
Yeah, before the end of the week, or the
Yeah, well, you're going to work tomorrow, right? Like, have it ready to go Monday.
no.
I'm actually setting the bed up. Like once I
Yeah, a few more
finish
drinks, you can
here,
just pass out. I
See
think
what
somewhere.
that bag is.
Yeah. Alrighty. We might move on to number 5, which is Tawny Cask maturation.
Tawny.
Tawny, yeah. So I'm going to harp on again about some releases from 2019. So 19005 took out Australia's best whiskey, I think. Mark, do you remember what we won?
Yeah, you won.
Or category win? Or in the World Whiskey Awards? I should know this, right?
No, it wasn't the Tawny. Oh, yeah, the Tawny one.
It was, yeah, 19005, yeah. I think it was around 54% full maturation Tawny.
51, I thought.
Yeah, I don't know. We should have done some research before we started the stream, shouldn't we?
51 so many awards, John. It's hard to
I know, yeah. Just another award, throw it in the corner. All right. Well, anyway, this is full maturation Tawny. Again, a little bit different to our normal style of bourbon maturation and finishing in a fortified or wine cask or other. Don't speak alone. So, it's an opportunity, tell us about it. 58.9%. So it's getting up there.
Yeah, well, it's actually it's actually one of our oldest spirits. That it's secret there.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it is actually one of our oldest spirits. Is in a big 300-litre Tawny cask.
It's not just sat in the corner for so long, right? We ignored it.
Yep.
How old do you reckon this is? You can make something up. People can't fact check it.
No, it's 7 to 8 years old.
20 years? No, I'm joking.
Yeah, it's probably 7.
It was one of our first distillates, one of our first casks.
Yeah.
Just sat there for a long time in a 300-litre cask.
Yes, before our time.
Yeah. But since then you've done some things to it.
Yeah, so the cask it was in, it did an all right job, but it was just a bit plain. You couldn't even really tell for sure that it was Tawny. So we got some awesome new Tawnies in, also big 300-litre Tawnies, and they smelled amazing. And basically just recast it straight into that, and that's been in there now for about 6 months, and that's how it's come along so far in that cask.
It's a big whiskey. It's very chewy.
This is close too. Like, this is good.
And the best part is these have all just pretty much come straight from the cask. They're
Yes, this one hasn't been messed with.
It's pretty full on with the Tawny. It's a lot of Tawny, right?
Do people know what Tawny is, I imagine? Do you want to fill them in, Mark? Seems like a Mark thing. Explain what Tawny is.
Literally just what we call port, but
there we go.
Reasons, really.
Yeah, don't tell me, tell the camera.
Yeah. I think they all know. Everyone knows.
All right, okay. We don't know the caliber of people.
The caliber's very high in this group.
Okay, all right, yeah, perfect. To me, it's a very big whiskey. Sort of a lot of that chocolate. Those dark fruits.
I get almost not a smokiness, but a burnt bit on the finish. I don't know what.
I was going to say like a tobacco note.
There's definitely that sort of element to it. Definitely.
I definitely get like a tobacco sort of note coming through. Could be the chara,
Could be.
Getting that.
From the char.
Subtle though.
So I mean, it's 58.9%. Again, I'm not sure how it reacts with water. I'm trying most of these for the first time tonight as well.
It surprised me though for how old it is. That it's still kind of got a bit of thinness to it.
Yeah.
I think that's rich.
Oh, it's definitely rich, but the actual texture is just a little bit thin.
Yeah.
No, this flavour wise, this is one of my favourites.
Yep.
It's coming through.
I can see what you're saying. It's not as viscous as even the Chardonnay on the palate.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I still got that sort of really underlying wine note as well that I get. I mean, it's a Tawny characteristic, but sort of like fresh wine. Not my pick for the night by far, but that's the thing about whiskey, right? Everybody's got a different
palate.
That's it.
Yeah.
Not to my palate. Any comments?
Yeah, some great notes. Bit of cacao, chocolate on the nose. Yeah, people are still saying they still like the Shardy rum, so I'd be interested to see how that comes out. But, some people saying they think better with water. I liked it personally without water, but to each their own.
I think it removes a bit of that spikiness. Just it's a little bit peppery without water.
Right.
But again, horses for courses, right? You haven't really wanted to add water to anything tonight. You've just been.
I've tried them all with water. I think the Chardonnay's bang on at 58% and wouldn't mess with that ABV at all, to be honest. I think the Botrytis was fine with a drop of water, so I can see why that was released at a little bit less.
Yep. All right.
It brings out a bit of sweetness in the tawny, a bit of water, but it also brings out a bit of heat. Flavors.
I probably added too much water. Mine tastes a bit like tawny flavored water now.
Hey guys, a couple of questions, if I may. Are your casks always, or sorry, your whiskey always normally matured or original part in a bourbon cask before you put them for a finish in maybe a muscat or something else? It seems that that's what I'm sensing tonight. Majority of whiskeys are matured originally in a bourbon cask. And then the second one is, you're talking about next week releasing some other whiskey. So what are you feeling after all the tasting night and feedback of when you may release the other whiskies other than the Botrytis? You're talking about next week for one of them, but how are you feeling for the other ones?
Interesting.
Yeah, look.
Oh, sorry. We all started
wants to
talking
go?
at once.
That's right.
Yeah. You want to go
How
first,
about it?
Ben?
Well, 90% of our bond store, let's face it, bourbon casks, and we love bourbon, so most of it will be bourbon. But there are a lot of other things, and it's growing more and more on different things. We're getting lots of PX casks and things like that. But yeah, we do love bourbon. Let's face it.
Yeah, and look, I guess when we go to make whiskey, or put whiskey in bottle, we want it to be quite well rounded and good structure and good balance, and we find that's a lot easier to do when you start with a good base and then just sort of add to it, whether that's through cask finishing or decanting and then sort of adding other things in. So I did mention I do love the romance of a single cask, but then you are limited to one cask basically doing all the work that you want to impart into a whiskey. Some of my favourite bottlings ever were the Benriach Port Cask series. They did the single casks. They were great. They weren't always the best whiskey, but just the romance of it. Look, I would love to do more single cask, more full cask maturation, but bourbon is just so versatile. We love it because the good bourbons we can pull out and make bourbon matured whiskey, just release it as is. But then otherwise we can just move it around casks and finish.
And going through the bourbon casks and looking at them individually, it teaches you a lot because, each one might have a different flavor or a different palate profile. So one might be just honeycomb while the other is, butterscotch or caramel or whatever it might be. And it's quite nice to have a combination and try and get some layer and some texture in your palate. And so we basically just make a whiskey that we like, really.
That's it. Yeah. Look, and it's quite good having a small team here for that reason. We've got Trevor, myself, Ben, Josh, and even, Mark and Dave as well, sort of jump in and help. And we sort of bounce ideas off people. But ultimately, these two guys here can sort of just really curate whiskeys that they're happy with and want to put together.
Exactly.
So a few generic questions just before we roll into the poll.
Right.
One from Emma at the Whisky List is, are you doing more cognac finishes? And as we showed earlier, we have some cognac casks in the.
We do. So we do have some cognac casks down there kicking away. I think we've got a full maturation cognac cask.
There's a few,
yeah.
I know we always enjoy trying them whenever we get the opportunity, but every time we've tried them, it's always been, even just straight from the cask, it's been, not yet.
Yeah, and quite often towards the end of the night when the palate's a little bit shocked already.
Speak for yourself. But so a couple of other questions. Oh, and any more rum cask?
Oh, look, I'm pushing hard for another rum cask or a rum finish. I am always partial to bourbon and rum cask. I want cask strength bourbon. I want a rum finish. And I want a Sherry Lafroig. Right, Ben, can you make it happen, please?
Yeah. It's a question about the Tawny.
Yeah, we've been laying down a lot of rum casks. We got 20 of them come in, 2 months ago? And just been slowly working our way through them. So,
Couple other questions.
a question about the
one of
Tawny here.
listeners in the chat watching frequently releases a handful of bottles at natural cask strength and then the rest cut. Is that something Hobart have ever considered doing or might think about doing for a release?
I mean, I guess it's hard because when we cut a whiskey to what and put it in the bottle, we deem that to be the best representation of our whiskey.
Right.
I do like the idea of, giving people the opportunity to buy something completely uncut, but ultimately, if there's a Hobart whiskey bottle on somebody's shelf or somebody's going to share it, I want that to be what we want them to try and not, and if we think just a drop of water is going to make it a better whiskey, that's what we're going to do.
So basically, the fact that you release Hobart added distiller's strength, not a generic ABV, that's you saying this is the best representation of this expression.
Absolutely. And look, it's all subjective, right? Like much like flavour, people have different ideas of the perfect ABV and how they want to, enjoy a whiskey.
It's such a small thing because when you see the ABVs, it's not about how much water did you add. It's also how much alcohol did we blow off.
Yes. Yeah.
There's so much more that goes into it.
Yeah. So last question before we do the poll then.
Right.
Obviously, Hobart's renowned for its ex-bourbon casks. Has there ever been a discussion about releasing a bourbon?
A bourbon, an actual bourbon.
An actual bourbon.
Bourbon.
Well,
Me and Trevor talk about it.
yeah, Ben and I have been talking about it now for
Donkey's
a year. Yeah, like from the start, considering we've got so many bourbon barrels, like it'd be crazy not to release a bourbon whiskey at some point.
Were the discussions like, obviously you're going to have to get a different mash bill, but were you saying you're going to do full bourbon style with a virgin oak cask that you then put your corn juice into, or
corn juice?
That's what we would love to do. And there's so many cool things like that we want to do. And it's really just on the side of it because
you're not worried about any effects that different mash bill might have on the still or tainting anything else.
Absolutely not.
Not for a bourbon.
Yep.
No,
definitely not.
Sounds like
news to me. Like I
I just haven't come up and asked you for 500 kilos of corn. So,
and at the end of the day, I mean, we love barley. It gives it so much more texture, and we get the flavour of the bourbon through the cask anyway. So it's hard to get it over the line.
Corn cheaper, John, than malted barley in Tasmania?
I don't know, actually, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I mean, the other thing is, if we're going to buy in some virgin oak, I'd love to just do single malt virgin oak maturation anyway.
Right, yeah.
Well, look, I wouldn't say no, but at the same time, we can't call it a bourbon, right? So what would it be called? Like
it's a whiskey.
Just a whiskey with an E, John.
Single grain.
Who would do whiskey with an E? Come on.
John, you can call it single grain, mate. And we're waiting for the rye whiskey as well, please.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
David MK says just call it single grain.
Maybe if we do one next week, we'll have one in 5 years.
Yeah.
Is there any chance, any way of buying a Tawny at the moment, a Hobart Tawny at the moment? Is there any way of getting hold of one?
Absolutely not.
No.
Not on a charity auction or anything.
Actually, mate, I don't even remember. Like this, you have the floor. Tell people what's going on.
You already got one.
Hobart Whisky made 2 bottles, so there's only 2 of them in the world for a charity auction that ends tomorrow night. Go to Australian Whisky Auctions and type in charity into the search bar. There's 39 bottles donated for cystic fibrosis. All proceeds go to cystic fibrosis, including the 10% buyer's fee donated by Sean at Australian Whisky Auctions, and all the 39 bottles are either one-offs like Hobart made, or 2-off because they made 2 of them for us generously, or signed bottles. So if you want to get a really rare Hobart whiskey where there's only 2 of them and for a really good cause, you've got until tomorrow night.
Thanks, John.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
no,
Cheers, mate.
perfect. Yeah.
Yep.
And
So who's
it's-
signing these
yeah.
bottles? Is there anyone important or just?
We actually forgot to sign out. So
Oh.
if somebody wins them, they'll probably have to bring them down and we'll get.
One of the workers from the
I think-
Albert store across the road.
More unsigned.
Yeah. So sign the bottles, we ship them off, and but Ben's signature's on the bottle anyway, and Rocky's signature. So you know.
So I think we're about ready for the poll.
Right.
So remember, we're just polling on the 5 expressions tonight. Obviously, one's already been released.
Yes, so the Botrytis is now available. I was meant to make a multiple choice poll, but I think I didn't, and I made it single choice. So,
Right, so
the
you have
pressure's
to
on.
choose your favourite.
Your
only.
favourite of the night.
Right.
Ooh.
Oh wow.
Guess what
Interesting.
we're releasing next?
Bourbon cask.
Could be a busy week bottling. Hang on, let's see if we can influence the Muscat. Let's, everyone at once. I love Muscat.
The Muscat gets no love. It's nobody else can see these results. Only
No,
the
no, just
hosts.
as commenting at the moment.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Vote for the Muscat.
Somebody gave them us.
Pity vote, I reckon.
So
That'll be Dave.
64 potential votes we've got at the moment. We have a clear leader at the moment, but it's
What
starting.
about around the room? So what's been the favourites?
From the gallery, any, so we'll just get some hands up. I'll give an indication. Anyone for the Muscat? Only vote for one. Muscat, no. Anyone for the Botrytis? Botrytis.
Oh, all of them. Yeah, everybody.
Maybe.
Yeah.
The Pinot. Anyone for the Pinot? Maybe. No one liked Chardonnay, did they?
Oh wow, really?
Right. 4, 5, and the Tawny.
Should have done that.
1,
Yeah.
2, and a bit.
Yeah. No,
I put my hand up for the tournament.
I love them all.
all right. So I reckon we might end the poll so we can post the results. And I think you've got to click share results and we should be golden. I think everyone will see it. All right. So yeah, clear favourite there with the Chardonnay and the Pinot. So I think it just shows the calibre of our whiskey lovers, and they love their cask strength whiskey.
They do.
They can all be wrong. That's okay.
They like a nice round number as well.
Yeah. Well, the Pinot though, it's not.
Yeah.
Look, I think we'll probably, we're trying to make sure our virtuals don't run on for hours like they have in the past. We're probably going to kill the recording.
So just lastly, a couple of big events.
Yeah,
in the calendar for Tasmania.
absolutely. Yeah. So, look, we're getting ready for the Winter Feast coming up in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
We are going to be releasing a new Winter Feast limited release, which this year is a sibling cask to our much wanted 2019 release. It's a full maturation rum maple single cask. Being a single cask that we'd actually dipped into before, there's not a great deal of bottles. So if you're interested, follow a link that somebody might kindly put in chat.
The newsletter link has been in the chat.
Yep, perfect. What else have we got going on, Mark? We've got Whiskey Week coming up.
Tasmanian Whisky Week in August.
Mhm.
So August 7th till 13th. It's been planned right now. It'll be better than ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hobart will involved in some way.
In
shape,
some
or form.
capacity, we'll be there. I mean, we sort of have to be, right?
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Do we have anything else going on?
They're the two big ones coming up.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yep. No.
All right. Perfect. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll stop the recording very soon. We'll probably just hang out here. You're welcome to have a chat amongst yourselves, and we'll probably be lurking around. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Trevor, Ben, Mark, all the muggles out there in the shadows. Thank you, Rocky, for tuning in, even though you've been oddly quiet. It's concerning. Mr. King, thank you with your COVID head for joining us today. And don't know what you've done.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right.
Have a good night, guys.
All right. Thank you.